If you're a Warriors fan, you've felt that mixture of anxiety and distrust every time market news comes out. Fear of paying too much, fear of making mistakes again, fear of seeing the window close without the right part. Well, in the last few hours, that has changed. The deal was closed. The value finally came to light, and now the question is direct. Was it boldness, or was it pure intelligence? Today, I'm going to show you how much the Warriors really paid, why this decision affects the present and future of the franchise, and how this move could be exactly the answer the team needed to get back to fighting at the highest level. Before following, do the following now. Subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and activate the bell, because this support is what makes this type of content reach more fans who experience exactly the same tension that you feel. And stay with me until the end, because the amount paid completely changes the reading of this deal. There are details that almost no one is commenting on, and the conclusion may surprise even those who thought the Warriors had made a mistake. Now let's get straight to the point. There was a recent moment when a lot of things started to make sense for those who follow the Warriors with real attention. It wasn't an official announcement, it wasn't a confirmed exchange on paper, but it was that type of discussion that reveals what's happening behind the curtains and forces fans to face reality. Sometimes the penny doesn't drop with a bomb on Twitter. It falls when someone says out loud what everyone feels but avoids admitting. Anyone who follows this franchise knows that the last few years have been marked by an uncomfortable feeling of waiting. Wait for a big movement. Wait for a star. Wait for a market miracle. And meanwhile, time passes. Stephen Curry continues to be brilliant, competitive, decisive, but the clock is ticking. He stops for no one, not for idols, not for dynasties. The great dilemma for Warriors today is not a lack of isolated talent. It's not a lack of resources either. It is a lack of clear decision. For a long time, the organization adopted a stance of accumulating assets, saving draft picks, keeping promising young players, and supporting the narrative that everything was part of a bigger plan. The promise has always been the same. When the right star appears, the Warriors will be ready. The problem is that this type of strategy has an expiration date, and he starts to win when you have one of the greatest players in history still playing at an elite level. With each season in which the team is in the middle of the road, the demand grows, not only from the fans, but from the historical context of the franchise itself. It is at this point that the discussion changes level. It's no longer just about who is the best player available. It's about understanding what makes sense for now and for later, and above all, to accept that perhaps the obsession with a specific name has closed doors that were open. When the debate arises about the possibility of the Warriors changing their focus, moving away from an almost mythical pursuit of a specific superstar and starting to consider a younger player, already proven and with an immediate fit, it changes everything. Messes with the planning logic. Messes with the narrative of the future. It affects the fans' emotions, because there is a very clear fear at the bottom of it all. The fear of making mistakes. The fear of paying too much, the fear of giving up young talent and draft picks, and later on, regretting it. But there is an even greater fear, even if less talked about, the fear of not doing anything relevant while there is still time. Warriors fans have already experienced the peak, already celebrated titles. Have you ever seen a system work almost perfectly? Exactly for this reason, tolerance for mediocrity is lower. When you've already been at the top, being in the middle of the table hurts more than never getting there. That's why discussing a big, bold, strategic move isn't just about basketball. It's about identity. It's about message. It's about telling the squad, the league, and Curry himself that the franchise is still willing to take risks to win. When it comes to bringing in a young player with creative power, capable of sharing offensive responsibilities and relieving the constant pressure on Curry, the discourse changes completely. It stops being just another star and becomes the bridge between eras. Someone who helps now, but who can also support the team when the transition inevitably happens. This type of player solves a problem that Warriors have been facing for longer than many would admit. When Curry is marked aggressively, when defenses double, When the game tightens, there is a lack of someone who can create advantages consistently. Not someone who depends on the system, but someone who manages the system. And this is not a criticism of the current cast. It's a diagnosis. Rotation players, good defenders, useful pieces, it all matters. But in playoffs, in big games, what decides is who can create difficult shots when nothing is flowing. And this has been a weak point. At the same time, any movement of this size requires sacrifices. Nobody hands over a young, established player for free. The price involves high choices, promising young people and future flexibility. That's where the discussion heats up, because it forces the franchise to answer an uncomfortable question. What's worth more, potential or certainty? Young talents enchant because they represent hope. Draft picks fuel dreams. But dreams don't win championships alone. And NBA history is full of franchises that waited too long, trusted too much in maybes, and missed the window without realizing it. The central point of this discussion is not to say that one way is right and the other is wrong. It is recognizing that inertia is also a choice, and often it is the worst of them. When talking about a high amount paid, a heavy investment, the initial reaction is usually shock. But context matters. Paying a lot for a player in his prime, with age, health, and fit, can be much smarter than saving now and paying the price of irrelevance later. That's why a lot of people start to look at this type of movement and see it as a smart move, even if risky. Not because she is perfect, but because she faces the problem head-on, because it takes responsibility, because it recognizes the historical moment in which the franchise finds itself. The Warriors are not rebuilding. They are also not completely ready to compete for titles, are in a dangerous limbo. Leaving this limbo requires courage, requires accepting criticism. It requires giving up part of the future to protect the present. And perhaps the greatest merit of such a movement is symbolic. Show that the time for waiting is over, that the era of accumulating assets without converting them into real impact has come to an end, that while Stephen Curry is on the court, the priority is to compete at the highest level possible. Ultimately, this discussion is not about a specific name. It's about philosophy. It's about understanding that large franchises don't just live on conservative planning. They live on difficult decisions, made at the right time. The fan may disagree with the path. You may find it expensive. You may question the fit. This is all legit. What you can't do anymore is pretend that time isn't passing. If the Warriors really paid this amount, if they really closed this deal, the right question is not just, was it expensive? The question is, does this bring the team closer or further away from becoming relevant again when it matters most? And that is exactly what we need to analyze calmly, without blind passion, but also without fear of facing reality. Because deep down, every fan just wants one thing, to feel that the team is doing everything it can to win while there's still time. And that is exactly why this movement cannot be analyzed just by the cold number that appears on the screen or by the immediate impact on the news. It needs to be understood as a watershed. Either the Warriors admit once and for all that they are still in the fight, or they accept that time has passed without warning. Decisions like this are not made to please everyone. They are made to change the course of history. And, like it or not, this type of bet is what separates franchises that compete from franchises that just survive. If you want to continue understanding everything that is happening behind the scenes of the Warriors, without empty headlines and without shallow guesswork, now go to the pinned comment and access the Golden State Warriors News Today playlist. There are all the updates, in-depth analyses, and the next chapters of this story that is still far from over. Stay with me on this journey because while there are big decisions being made, we will be here breaking down every detail.